is not very highly talented, but even average, a little below average, have patience, work with him, train him, and let him grow. So I think that will do justice to both.
I have a view on this. I think.
If I may be allowed to add to what Professor Dhankar said, because I come from the same fraternity that Professor Dhankar does. I belong to IP University's on-campus School of Management, and I look after the corporate relationship cell of the university. So just to add to what Professor Dhankar said, I think we face a different kind of challenge because we are talent suppliers rather than talent acquirers. And I believe that we belong to, even though we have 108 affiliated colleges, and mine is the on-campus school. So this is, we have around 25,000 students who appear in the MBA test, and our admission closes at 200 rank of 200 odd. I mean, but still, I'll keep my school in the tier 2 school, and what Professor Dhankar said in his opening remarks holds importance here, that are the industry people, are they prepared to move to the tier 2 and to tier 3 B schools, which are probably not only B schools, but also the educational institutions, which are probably near you, which are probably in Delhi, and then the talent which is available there may not actually be the superb talent that may be available with tier 1 educational institutions. Right. But at the same time, it is definitely a developable talent. For example, I'll share, in a minute I'll share my experience recently that we had some of the very good finance companies visiting us last session, like KPMG, like WNS, like Protiviti, like Ernst & Young, some of the students placed with PwC as well. And I keep on hearing from them that this was an excellent talent that we got, and we would like to visit you again. But the gentleman in the panel, I do not see any company other than Jabong. Mr. Praveen was there himself. I do not see any other company visiting such.
I think got your question. I think that's just to in the paucity of time. Yeah. You know, let me ask this. Let me flip this question and ask you, why should I, as a company, compromise on talent when I have options? Very simply put, right? I'm not running a charity. I'm running a serious business. So my take to you people who are from academia to start looking inwardly, instead of there is no end to putting blames here and there. I've done a lot of research work with different universities. My request to you guys, who are from tier 2 and who has made this classification. Classification is based on talent pool which you have, right? Based on, the faculty you have, number of people who get absorbed. So look at those metrics which can take you tier 1 and tier, like that, right? So you have to look at how you can upgrade your infrastructure and how you can influence your course to meet the needs of the industry. Because ultimately, let's be very, very careful. I need to run my business. For sure, as an HR head, I'm not going to compromise on the talent. If you don't provide, I'll go to XYZ. So my request, look inwardly. And what you said, again, I did a lot of work with, I did some course with Carnegie Mellon. And they have their concept called incubation center. So before the person comes out from the academia, from post-graduation or engineering course, they have 3-4 months of incubation. Like for Honda Motors, they have wonderful association with Carnegie Mellon, and they teach their students what we are looking for. It's a win-win situation. The person gets trained for 4 months in your, in the college, in your college. You are teaching what I want, and immediately is a plug back. So I take that person. So I'm thinking you have to look at differently. You have to bring that innovation in your course curriculum, and you have to ensure that you cannot give substandard talent to the industry. So you have to, the moment we start looking inwardly and make ourselves capable instead of having the tag of Bechara, it doesn't work, because that's the way I look at. And you have, and secondly, I look at, because there is plethora of mushrooming of B schools and so on and so forth. Look at how we can enhance quality. What's the end objective? Are we running for revenues? Are it only number games? So these are very, very important questions to be asked. If you don't answer those questions, you will not get those solutions.
Agreed.
So look at what are we doing? What's the quality? What's the infrastructure? I've seen many colleges where don't have basic labs, and you want to that companies like Infosys or Wipros to hire. It's not going to work. I'm sorry, but that's my very, very honest reading, and I would really like because there is dearth of talent. You have seen this data is in front of you. There's room for everybody. It's up to us, and I think India needs it. Make in India concept will never be fructify, never. The other day I was in the NASSCOM meeting. It's not going to work because we don't have talent. The quality is just not there. We have to get, I don't want to get talent from outside, but it's not there. We have a design center. I have to go to Spain. I have to go to London. What to do? So we have to ask those difficult questions and start building these capabilities inside, these competencies inside, and then things will change. I think that's being very honest.
I think I will try to balance it. I think that both the parties have their own grievances and issues involved, right? How do we really balance the whole equation? Overall, if you look at education system when it comes to academia, as Ashu is saying, there are a huge number of institutes across the country, right from one nook to the other corner. One should not really be saying, but the purpose of existence for them is very, very different. Whereas there are a lot of other institutes which are also doing a quality work, and they would like to churn out right students. The type of intake will be there, whatever the type of intake will be there in the institute, that is the type of output the institute will be in position to throw out. Are institutes in position to really leave seats unattended in case they don't have right quality of people attending the course? If they have taken students, if there are 100 seats and 50 are good and 50 have to be still filled in, and later on these 50 basically create problem for you because your overall placement gets impacted. Overall education system, academia, industry is always eager to help, right? I don't say to any institute which comes to me and says that we want you to come to the campus and hire. I visit most of the campuses whenever people tell me whether it's a Jaunpur or Allahabad or a Calcutta or a Bombay or a Jalgaon. If I'm traveling, I'll definitely go and visit the campuses. I say I can give you an opportunity of showcasing your students for a couple of months with me, and that doesn't do much to me. I can always get people to train. If they are in position to really show talent, they will get hired. And we're talking about IP University. I think that we visit few campuses and we have some great students from there. They are working. But at the same time, there are more students who are not working as compared to, or rather most students who have not been hired because of the quality or the efficiencies they were bringing in on the table. So every institute has diverse talent. How do you differentiate between the wheat and the chaff is important for you as well as for us.
Just to add, not to get me wrong, we had gone to for campus to Jamia Millia and IP universities, got very good talent. Okay, that's there. But the question I'm making, how we can start looking inwardly. And I have great respect. We go for campus, all the institutes. It's not about Excels or IIMs. We go to all the campus. But the point I'm making that we have to start looking inwardly and see that what we can do, to increase the competency capabilities within the institute and ensure that industries can absorb. And industries are there to help you. We are there. I think big companies like Hero Motors and so on and so forth. They need a lot of talent. So you guys have to come up. See that we are going to work with you. We want to work with you to,
in fact,
help you.
I have been talking to some of the people from the academics and the organizations like in terms of institute. I've been saying, tell me one or two private institutes which are focused on developing a talent in a particular field. Is there an institute which says that, okay, fine, I'm going to develop talent in a legal field or in the field of, HR? Why is it so that infrastructure is weak? Overall backup support system is weak, but the organization or the institutes offer all sort of facilities, all sort of courses. Where can we really balance? Look at the institutes which are government funded. Tata Institute of Social Sciences remains an HR focused organization. It doesn't get drifted. It doesn't say that I'll teach everything which I can, which is available on platter. So if the specialized institutes are there and organizations or the institutes are in position to figure out what are they good at, focus on that, create a brand out of that whole course, and then leverage it for other courses, perhaps that makes more sense, rather than spreading too thin and finally having students who can't really be placed.
One of the things that I would possibly look at that is that just the way corporates would look at retaining, developing, investing in the talent that they have, I think academic institutions also need to look at retaining the best teachers. How many academic institutions can really boast of good quality teaching staff? You know, that's where the issue comes many times. You might build the best of the labs, but if you don't have good teachers in the organization or in the academic institution, you're not going to be able to churn out good quality students. Now, I think this is something, how many organizations, sorry, how many academic institutions can say that this teaching is a profession that is respected? How many teachers from your institutions can proudly come and say that I teach in this place? I think these are things that when Ashu says, or when we are saying look inwardly, it is about that. In organizations invest a lot in terms of developing next generation leaders. Do you invest a lot in developing next generation teachers for yourself? That's the thing. It's not about a factory. It's not about 10-15 lakhs and saying that, you know, industry will come. It's really about investing not only on the infrastructure, but the softer side of it and the talent that needs to be there. And once it sets, it's a virtuous cycle actually. You know, the talent decides which academic institutions, and then, you know, it goes. Once it starts, it's just a spin. And I think, you know, it just continues after that.
I would like to make an observation here, and I think it's as an HR head of a German multinational in India. What I think is the important third element in this is the candidate or the student himself or herself. I think the spin, in my experience, is because there's an issue of retention. If we knew that the people we hired from the campus would stay with us for at least 5-6 years, I'm willing to run them through a year-long program. The problem is, if I run them through a year-long program and the next year and a half they're out in the market shopping, that doesn't help me. There's no return on investment. So either here, between the industry and the academics, you create a culture or set some industry rules where you make it imperative for the student that if they join the campus placement, you know, A, they take the offer seriously. Yeah, that's what most institutes are doing. But B, they actually join you because you have actually spent tons of money, effort, and energy trying to hire the talent. There is no guarantee of that. Secondly, you run them through a lovely, very well built, very well structured, systematic induction year-long program. You run them through so many departments, you plan classroom trainings, and there is no guarantee of retention. There is no return on investment. I think maybe the institute has to work with their students to help them understand this relationship. There are companies investing on you, and at least they stay with you for years. I'm not saying for life, but a few years is not a bad deal, I think.
So I think there will never be.
I think that's contradictory to what millennials need, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And also, it's important to understand as an organization, you have to be a giver. I always say that in case people are not coming for your training program, there's something wrong with you because you have not developed traction about your program.
Correct.
Don't say people are not coming, attendance is 30%, 50%. In case people are not staying with your organization, I don't think that you should blame to people who are aspirational. And I think that will not be the right way to look at it, that why should I invest if people will not join or people will not get retained. We are in a thriving economy. We need to develop ourselves and also give opportunity to people to stay voluntarily and deliver to the organizations rather than really forcing them in a system wherein organizations and the institutions try to create a culture wherein people stay because they have been invested. That's what my thought is.
That's a chicken and hen story, right?
Just to,
but if they don't stay, then they don't, the companies don't invest, and then you get in that circle all over again.
Sorry?
You know, the other way
How do you turn out?
Rookies. Going off track.
Mic is not working.
So, you know, there's no right or wrong answer to this. You know, we often get asked this question that why should I invest? You know, the person's going to leave us. My only response is, for heavens.
Jabong is looking for the profit, then why not the business school looking for the profit? It is the government to be blamed. Why the license of being so many management schools and so many, all the things that AICT, and it is the Minister of Human Resource Development. Because we may not need so much technical people, we need the simple people. We need the people, we are running for the based on 7% GDP, having so much illiteracy in the thing, our primary education is still on. we don't know how to draw the triangle and we are aspiring to the trigonometry, it is not the talent.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah. In fact, maybe we should actually catch up on this. I don't think it's his industry versus academia thing. I think it's a partnership. I think the point of view is that you have to work collaborate in a collaborative manner to solve this problem. To your question in terms of training, like I was saying, I think my response to clients always is, if you don't invest and just imagine people stay with you and see what kind of a soup that kind of puts you in. That's the challenge to this whole thing, that there is no guarantee someone's going to stay with you, but I think as an organization, it's a commitment to the process.
Sorry, just to give the practical answer to the question you asked, yes, gone are the days where you have 1 year of rigorous training. Doesn't work. So like in our case, what we have done, we have 3 months of compact training program. And also when you structure a compensation, you have something called as, ensure that you put something very, very innovative, pieces in that, like, have retention bonus to ensure that that person stays around. So as Yuvraj said that, you have to, again, as an industry also, you have to look inwardly. And you have to ensure that people sticks around. So you have to create those stickiness around your organization.
Levers.
In terms of learning, in terms of compensation, in terms of,
Reward.
different things. Because gone are the days where you say the guys, you have to work for 2 years, it doesn't work. Because longevity, again, said that is not going to work.
Very true.
You have to look differently.
It's not part of CDC.
मिलना ही नहीं है.
मिलोगे तो मिलोगे.
You can take on to the next point.
We should move on.
I think the discussion is on the net take home every month. What do I get every month, rather, or every week, whatever it is.
True.
Good. Can I suggest? I think we're literally on time. So with that, I think let's close it. I think everyone's available for
one-on-ones.
So you can actually catch any one of us that you want to chat up for a while. So thank you, Ashu, Sanjay, Sriharsha, Yuvraj. Thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you for being such a nice audience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, panelists, for the enlightening discussion and for sharing your views with us. I'm sure each one of us is taking back a lot of valuable insights. A special thanks to all the participants as well for being such an interactive audience. May I now invite Mr. Rajeshwar Mukhopadhyay, VP Sales, NorthShine.com, to present a token of appreciation to our esteemed panelists. Mr. Mukhopadhyay, please felicitate the panelists, starting with Mr. Ashu Malhotra, Jabong.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. Mr. Sanjay Jorapur, Mr. Nitin Sethi, Mr. Saurabh Nigam, Dr. Sriharsha Achar, and Mr. Yuvraj Srivastava. Panelists, would request you for a group photograph, please. Thank you, panelists. May I now invite Dr. Professor D.S. Yadav, CMD, Modern Diagnostics and Research Center, for the closing address. He's a renowned radiologist known to the city for the last 25 years. He was awarded Rajiv Gandhi National Unity Award for Outstanding Achievement in Services in the year 2009. Dr. Yadav, please address the gathering.
Forward, backward, pointer. Laser pointer.
Good evening, everybody. It's an honor to be addressing this august gathering of corporate heads, senior executives, and managers. We had a very lively discussion on talent recruitment. Now, once you hire this talent, you train them, they become an asset. And as Dr. Dhankar pointed out, talent is in short supply. We have scarcity of talent. So this talent should be preserved. This should not be allowed to wither away or disappear. But what happens? These people, over a period of time, either due to work pressure or ambition to move up the ladder, they ignore their health. And once you ignore your health, disease gradually creeps in, takes a foothold. And many of these talented people are lost in the prime of their productive years. This is a loss to the nation. But it is a disaster to the family whose sole breadwinner is lost. Today I want to stress on you that you must devote some time to your health. Take it seriously. We have devoted our life to your health. Out of 37 years of professional experience behind me, 30 years I have spent in early diagnosis of various diseases. We have two centers. This is an old city across the highway, and this is another just right next to this venue, fourth building on the same side. Both the centers are very well equipped. We started operations in 85, and virtually every modality in the city has been introduced by us, be it ultrasound, CT scan, MRI, mammography, digital X, everything we have introduced in the city. We have 3 Tesla MRI. This is the highest field MRI that is available, and this is the only US FDA approved MRI. We do all kinds of specialized investigation in MRI, like MR spectroscopy, where we identify various molecules in disease process, functional MRI to identify which area of brain is controlling what, spectrography, etc. I will take just 1 minute, and then we will come back to the topic that interests every one of you. Let's go back. Back once. Back. This is coming. Just. We have a very advanced laboratory which is accredited by National Accreditation Board, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. We do all kinds of tests, even very high-end tests, real-time PCR, where we multiply RNA and DNA. And we have the largest inventory that we do in-house within the city. Now coming back, we have World Heart Day on September 29th. So I thought that this is the most appropriate forum to talk to you, because it affects you, me, and everybody who is having a stressful life, is working hard. Every 1.5 minutes, there is a death in India due to heart attack. So take it seriously. What are the risk factors? Age. Age is the biggest risk factor. Everybody is to age, and as your age increases, your chances of getting heart attack are much more. Sex. Males have more preponderance to heart attack compared to females. Females in their initial years are protected by estrogen in the body, but after menopause, they catch up with males. Genetic. We Indians as a race are more prone to heart attack compared to any other race in the world. And if you have a disease in your family, you are that much more likely to have this disease. Diabetes. This is the biggest contributor to heart attack. We are the diabetes capital of the world. We have highest number of diabetes patients in the world. Hypertension, high blood pressure. This is also a very important factor for heart disease. Obesity. If you are overweight, you are more likely to have heart attack, but no one is exempt. If you are lean and thin, you can also have heart attack, but percentage is less. High lipid levels. If your cholesterol is high, LDL is high, triglyceride is high, you are more likely to have heart disease. Then lifestyle. Smoking is another major contributor. Smoking damages every system in the body. Then stress, sedentary lifestyle. They are the major contributors. Out of these three, you can't do anything about age, sex, and genetic makeup. So these are non-modifiable. You can't do anything about it, so forget about it. But you can do a lot about others. Diabetes, control your sugar level. It should be as near normal. Take medicines to reduce your blood pressure. Ideal is 120/80. Nowadays, aim is to get to as close to 120/80 as possible. Obesity, control your weight. It should be ideal for your height and age. High lipid levels, they can be controlled with statins. Take statins, they should be normal. And of course, quit smoking, increase exercise in your lifestyle, and try to reduce stress. This is a data that shows that about 25% of heart attacks, they are occurring in less than 40 years of age. This is a very young age. And all of you must have read in news yesterday that son of ruler of Abu Dhabi died at the age of 33 years due to heart attack. And people are getting heart attack at 20 years of age. And 25% is a very high figure for 40 years of age. And by 45 years, 40% of the heart attacks are, and 55% heart attacks are less than 50 years of age. Just to tell you symptoms, normally heart pain will occur in this area. It can be in the ear, left side of face. Sometimes you feel that you got toothache, but actually this is a symptom of heart disease. You can get pain on neck, left shoulder, arm, medial side, left side of chest. Sometimes you may get all these on right side. You may get breathlessness on exertion, that you do some exertion and you feel breathless. If pain occurs on exertion, if you get pain, that is symptomatic diagnostic of coronary artery disease, that you have a problem. Sometimes you may feel that you got acidity. There is epigastric burning in stomach. This can also be a feature of coronary artery disease. And sometimes you may not get any symptom at all, and you may still have significant disease. During heart attack, this pain may be severe. You may feel constrictive type of pain. You may get sweating, fainting, giddiness, extreme tiredness, and sometimes again there may be no pain at all. But whenever you suspect you may be having heart attack, you must try to reach hospital as soon as possible. First hour is the golden hour, because in this time your life can be saved, or at least your heart muscle as much as possible can be preserved. As time passes, more and more heart tissue gets necrosed. But don't drive yourself, get help. If you are in some remote location where you know that you cannot reach hospital for next 2-3 hours, then take a tablet of aspirin. It will be available everywhere. 300 milligram aspirin, take it stat. Maybe it will help, because aspirin prevents clotting of blood. What are the tests that are normally done? You do ECG, cardiac enzymes, troponin T, troponin I, CK, X-ray chest, PVU, lipid profiles are always checked, echocardiography and TMT. These are basic tests generally done. But in some cases, these tests can be normal and you can still have disease. Unfortunately, medical line is not mathematics. What is true of one person may not be true for the other person. Then there is stress thallium, in which you can know, yes, you have got some problem, but it does not identify which artery is involved, how much it is involved. Coronary CT angiography. This can answer all your questions. And the last, the gold standard is of course catheter angiography, where a catheter is put in your artery, taken to heart, and then coronaries are injected with contrast and X-rays are taken. But it carries certain morbidity and mortality also. Coronary CT angiography is non-invasive. It's just like a normal IV injection. Actual data acquisition takes just 4 to 5 seconds. So this is very simple. See, if I had suspicion of a disease, coronary artery disease, and if I get coronary CT angiography done, then I know what I am having, what kind of vessel involvement is there. I can consult one doctor, second doctor, third doctor. But if I am on the table and cath angio is being done, and doctor tells me that you need 1 stent, 2 stent, otherwise you will have to do the whole procedure again. Obviously, most of the time you will say yes. But this can help you. And coronary angiography has a very high negative predictive value. Means if your coronary arteries are normal, then they are normal. There is absolutely no doubt about it. In various studies, it has been seen that once a coronary angiography is normal, that person has not had any cardiac event in next 3 years. Just little bit about technology. See, normally you see the CT scan. They are single source CT scans. There is one X-ray source here and one detector system. Both rotate around the patient and acquire data. This is the ECG, and this is the part of the ECG when actual data is acquired. Heart is a moving organ, so we acquire data when the heart is relatively still. Heart is never still, but relatively still. This is dual source CT. The slide has skipped. Here you have 2 X-ray sources, 2 detector system, both rotate around the patient and you acquire data. This is the system that we have got. When we purchased it in 2009, this was available in only 2 hospitals in Delhi, AIIMS and Escorts Heart Institute, and even now only 2 more places it is installed. The advantage is that the part of the ECG that this can acquire data is very little. So, even if the heart rate is very fast, we can acquire data. This is how a coronary angiography looks like. We have 3D data, we can manipulate it. Normally, coronary CT angiography costs 14 to 18,000 rupees in depending on the place. We are doing it for 9,000 rupees for a limited period of time. This is how the coronary angiography looks like. This patient I want to tell you that this was our first patient. This is CT angiography, this is coronary angiography. This patient, we did his angiography, we told him that you don't need any intervention, you can be managed. But after some time he gets pain in the back, gets admitted to hospital. Doctor is interested in doing catheter angiography. Patient has no objection because somebody else is paying for him, and his angiography is done. And both are same. There is narrowing here, there is narrowing here, and nothing was done. Another unique thing that I want to tell you is that in our CT, we can tell you what type of kidney stone you are having. Nobody else can do that. There is a stone here, there is stone here. They look like same on normal CT, but we can tell you this is uric acid and this is calcium. Uric acid and calcium cystine stones, they can be dissolved just by alkalization of the urine. You don't need anything else. And last but one slide, we don't just talk health, we do a lot of work on health. These are the camps that we have been conducting. We started this program in 2014. We have done this program in various resident welfare associations, villages, factories, corporates. And till date, in last 8 months, we have done 40 lakh worth of tests absolutely free, no conditions. And this is not a small achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. I would like to thank all our sponsors now, starting with Ansal University, Gurgaon, presenting sponsor, Modern Diagnostics and Research Associate Sponsor, Vatica Limited Real Estate Partner, Aeon Hewitt Knowledge Partner, Tupperware Corporate Gifting Partner, Porfem Fashion Partner, Guru Nanak Education Trust, Hoshiarpur Education Partner, Skoda Automobile Partner. Our event partners are JK Lakshmipat University, Lee Meridian, Blue Orange Incentives Private Limited, NRM International, Zorooms, Healthcare at Home, HLF PPT. Thank you all for attending the conclave. Please join us for drinks and dinner now. Thank you.